Hey, Mom.
What?
Do these ribs already have the membrane removed?
Oh.
I'm not seeing it. I think it's not there. How'd you find it? Yeah. Okay, cool. I got it from there.
Do you see it?
Yeah, I got it now.
You got it?
Yeah. When you remove the membrane from the back of the ribs, you really got to make sure you get all of it. It's kind of hard to find sometimes, like I couldn't find it. Had to ask my mom for some help. But if you kind of just pick at the back of the bone side down, not this side, bone side, you'll be able to find like a little, kind of blends in with the fat on the back a little bit, but you can kind of just peel it off and then it comes off as this nasty looking piece. And I'm going to go throw that in the compost. I'm going to wash my hands again.
I haven't heard. Can I throw this away? Where are you going? Oh, they weren't.
Then once you have the membrane off your ribs, you're going to want to take some paper towels and just kind of dry it off, just so you don't have excess juices or anything before it goes in. Well, before you even put your dry rub on it. You want to make sure you do this on both sides. You can go over it a couple times just to make sure you get it all off. I'm actually just going to go over this side one more time. Actually, no, I need to do this, flip it over so the back doesn't get too wet again, because the blood from the top side's still going to be on there. So, now that I did that, I should just be able to take another group of paper towels. Also, I wouldn't use like rags for this. I'd use paper towels specifically, just so you don't have to, wash a bunch of stuff. You can kind of just get rid of it, because meat juices and whatnot uncooked, And you might have to use a lot of paper towels, but that's okay. I would not worry too much about it. And one last time, I'm going to grab this here. Flip it over and make sure this backside just kind of stays dry as possible, because I don't want it to be wet at all. I'm just going to kind of drag this around to try and dry off this cutting board that I'm using. And my mother just told me that I spilled meat juice a little bit on the countertop, so I'm just going to wipe that off. Scoot this a little bit back more onto that cutting board. Now for your dry rub, you can make your own. Just look up how to make your own dry rub if you really want it, or you can use store-bought. I'm using store-bought. I'm using Wee Willie's dry rub. I think it tastes good. It works. So you are going to want a fairly solid amount. Now it looks like I'm putting a lot on there, and I kind of am, but that's okay. You're just going to want to make sure you really kind of get into meat, press it in there if you need to. You want to make sure you have a pretty solid coating of that dry rub, because that is where a decent amount of your flavor can come from. What else is there to say, really? Oh, by the way, you might make a mess when you do this. That's fine. Just, clean up once you're done. You're cooking. Messes happen. And I am making a mess, so that's annoying. So, let me get some in my hands. You're going to want to get the sides as well, kind of where the bones are. You might think that's kind of something you can pass up. I wouldn't, because I don't know how you bite into your ribs. If you bite them sideways, if you bite them from the front, try and suck off the meat. But you kind of just want to get it everywhere, because you don't want to have a disappointing bite that has very little flavor in it, because that's just no fun. This kind of stuff will have your salt in it and stuff, so you don't need to add extra salt unless you really want it, because I'm pretty sure salt is going to be the first ingredient. Yep, it is. Salt is the first ingredient, always is. I'm going to flip this. You can kind of let the excess fall off just like that. I don't know how well you can see that on the camera, but actually you can see it reasonably well. It's kind of like right along here. Anyways, flip it over, do it again. I'm gonna be out of dry rub after this. I'm gonna need to go buy some more. That's okay. I only have one rack of ribs in the fridges, so. And the dry rub that falls off, just sweep it back into your hand. It's not like it went on a dirty place or anything. It's just going back on the same cutting board, so you can just rub it right back on. And you should be able to see the color changes happening from your screen, but I'm just going to rub this into the sides a bit more, and no, I'm just gonna finish that bottle off. And my dog is doing something. Wonder what he's up to. Hear my mom calling for him. I'm just gonna sweep more of that back into my hand. You make a mess, that's fine. You just want to make sure you get the sides, because once again, you don't want a disappointing bite of meat, especially on those end pieces. Because, who wants bland meat? That's no fun. Now you might have little chunks of, fat like this. You can do whatever you want with them. You can leave them on, you can cut them off. I'm actually going to cut this piece off, because it's not really attached to any bone, and I don't need it. Now I'm going to go back over my compost bin, toss the excess meat back in there, and throw this out. I recommend using, I don't know how you open your trash cans. I use my feet to open up just so I don't have to wipe that off later, because my hands are all meaty. So I'm going to wash my hands again. Oh, I don't need to wash my hands again, because I'm going to just move the meat. So, yeah, you can kind of take this off, shake on the sides a little bit, press the sides onto your, what's it called, cutting board, or wherever you put your spices onto it. As you can, I don't know how you can see it on this camera, but this meat has a nice little crevice that goes down here, so what you can do is you can pick up some more of those spices, just kind of rub it in there, because once again, don't want any bland pieces, because that's no fun to eat. See a little bit of excess crap over here. I'm going to snip that off again. If your hands are meaty and you're touching something like a compost bin or just opening stuff up, I highly, highly recommend that you clean it off later. Just because, if you're cooking and you compost other stuff, cross-contamination and whatnot. Now, I am getting rid of some meat here, which is sad, but it's not something that's going to... This piece is probably, it's mostly fat. It's going to shrivel up when you cook it. And it's just more work for once you clean off your whatever you decide to cook it on. And yeah, so I'm going to pick this up and transfer it over to, this is a cookie sheet with a raised metal piece on the top, just so, like, the bottom can sort of get cooked as well. And I'm going to go wash my hands, and then we can throw it in the oven. You can walk wherever. I don't mind. I did not break anything. It's fine. So, I don't know how well you can tell, but this cutting board is an absolute mess. So what we're going to do is this bottom part, there are two little holes down here that don't get too messy. So I'm going to pick this up and throw it in the sink. And I will clean that off in a minute. So I didn't preheat the oven beforehand, and there's a reason for that. So I'm going to put it to, I don't know, 250? 250 sounds good to me. And, yeah, 250. And while that heats up, we're actually going to take this time to clean. Because you don't want to leave your kitchen a mess because, you know, cleanliness and whatnot. So I'm simply going to take this paper towel and kind of try and move the spices all over into one spot. And my mother is being nice and picking up the trash can for me and moving it over here. So I am just going to continue to sweep all this excess off into here. You don't need to move the microphone, it's doing just fine. Alright, countertop cleaned off, much better. So, oven still preheating to 250. Rack, you want the rack in the middle, just so it cooks more evenly. And, yeah. So, let's go over why I'm cooking at 250, because if you do the recipe off the ribs package, like for this one, it said, I don't know, I think it said 350 for 2 hours. I'm not doing that. We're going to do 250 for a total of 3 hours, but we're going to put this first timer at 2.5 because for the last 30 minutes, I'm going to go grab the barbecue sauce we're using real quick. So I have two options for barbecue sauce. I think I'm going to use the spicy barbecue sauce today. I highly, highly recommend Stubbs barbecue sauce. It's really good. You can order online, places like Amazon, through their website. I believe they also sell it at Cub, maybe Hy-Vee. Yeah, really good barbecue sauce. I mean, you can use whatever barbecue sauce you like, but I really, really recommend Stubbs. It's super good. And, yeah, I think I'm going to use the spicy barbecue sauce today. But, yeah. So, this is unopened. I mean, it doesn't need to be refrigerated yet, so I can just leave it on the counter. I'm going to throw the original flavor back into the fridge. So, from there, once this oven hits 250, we are going to throw our ribs right into there for 2.5 hours. And I will be back with you once that 2.5 hour time is up. Okay, I lied. I'm not going to be back in 2.5 hours. I'm going to show you before I put it in. I don't know how well you can see that, but the ribs, they have completely changed color. You can see the rub that has gotten into them pretty well. Color has completely changed to a much darker tone. If I pick this up a little bit, you can see it's going to be elevated. This helps a little bit with cleaning in post, and it's just set across on a diagonal. I could, you know, make it straight, but I'm just leaving it as diagonal just because it fits a little bit better that way. Ribs aren't quite as compressed. Gives them more room to shrink back onto the bone. So, oven just hit 250. So I'm going to take this up, throw it in there, set a timer for 2 hours and 30 minutes. And now I will actually be back in 2.5 hours. One other thing, if you did happen to get meat juices on your counter like I did, I've already done it while the camera was off for a bit, I highly, highly recommend using a countertop cleaner or something just so you don't have that, you know, raw meat type stuff sitting there. If you do something with chicken, I especially clean that. But yeah, that's about it. I'll see ya in 2.5 hours. So I just took it out of the oven. I am going to put some Stubbs barbecue sauce on it. You can just pour it on top and use spatula to move it around. What I like to do is it's like a butter brush. I don't even know what it's called. I'm going to put it in a ceramic bowl. Put as much or as little as you want in there because you're going to have to do this, I don't know, 2 more times, 2, 3 more times after? Yeah, 3. So just get whatever you want to do wet with it and then just get it all over the entire rack of ribs. And after you get this done, you're going to throw it back in for 10 more minutes until you hit 3 hours of total time. So you got to throw it back in 3 more times. You're going to need a little bit more. I just do it this way because that way I can't put too much on the ribs all at once. You can just make a mess out of it. So I use this brush. It's turned out pretty well. Previous times I've done this. But if you don't have one of these, just pour it on, move it around with a spatula. Your hands if you aren't afraid to get burned or whatever. I really don't recommend using your hands though because the meat and the metal is all going to be hot and burning yourself is not ideal. So I'm just going to finish by putting the rest of this on there as well as I can. Throw it back in for 10 more minutes and then I will be back with you once that time is up. Now it's been another 10 minutes. Just do the same exact thing again. If you really wanted to, you could probably switch, well, not probably, you can switch up the barbecue sauces you use in between each time you do the sauce, but it's up to you. Because right now I'm using the spicy barbecue sauce. I mean, it's not that spicy, but if you have a very low tolerance for that, maybe you could do like regular, or I wouldn't do sweet with spicy, but that's up to you. You could do like regular and then a layer of spicy in the middle and then do regular again, just so you get a little bit of flavor out of that spice, but it's not too spicy that it bothers you. Personally, for this one, I'm going to be doing all 3 layers with the spicy barbecue. I'm going to turn on the light real quick. Cloud moved outside and the windows behind me aren't providing light right now, so I'm just going to do the same thing I did last time. If you get a bunch on this, like whatever you use, I mean, it's fine. It's going to wash off. And definitely, I'd say be liberal with the amount you put on. Definitely doesn't hurt to have a little bit more sauce everywhere. Just provides some of that good flavor, because with something like a rack of ribs, most that flavor is coming from your dry rub, and then the sauce, well, pretty much all the flavors coming from the sauces and dry rub. So definitely, like, don't overdo it, but put on an amount that you think's good. Kind of bit of a brain dead statement, but that's okay. Never know what level someone's at with cooking, so just gonna throw that back in for another 10 minutes. And after that 10-minute point, if you feel like it's not done enough or the meat hasn't shrunk back far enough, feel it's not cooked all the way through, never gonna hurt you to throw it back in just for a little while longer. It's not gonna ruin the meat or anything, and you can even continue to put on more sauce if you really want to. I wouldn't, just so you don't overdo it. I'd only do 3 times, but, well, yeah, 3. I can't count. Either way. But, I mean, that's just how I do it. You can always put on more sauce if you want to, and yeah. Alright, I'll see you back in about 10 more minutes. Alright, I'm just gonna throw one last layer of sauce on there. I think I'm gonna throw it in for just a little bit longer so the meat can shrink back a wee bit further on the bones, maybe 10-15 minutes more, not too sure. Yeah, I'll throw it in 5-minute increments. I don't think I'm gonna put any more sauce on after this point. Maybe a little bit. I don't know. Figure that out as I go though. And one thing when you are applying the sauce and stuff, you do have to pay attention to where it is and isn't, because you can see it. Like, I don't know how well you can see it on the camera actually. With that light on, it all just looks kind of red, reddish brown. But when you're looking at it, you can see it. It will be a little bit lighter in the spots where it isn't usually, depending on the color of the sauce. Yeah, my sauce is a pretty deep red brown, so yeah, I can definitely see where it isn't. So that's something. Sorry about my mom yelling. She's just coming back inside. Not much I can do about that. So just gonna finish putting the rest of that sauce on. Maybe a little bit down there. I don't feel I've gotten quite enough right in that area. And normally you would end it here, but however, I don't feel. I'd like it cooked just a little bit more, just so it's pulled a little bit further back off the bone. But you can kind of, I'll try and turn the ribs towards you. Don't know how well you can see it, but there are small indents. You can see that the meat is shrinking back on the bone. However, personally, I'd like it back a little bit further, so I'm going to give it another 10 minutes or so, and I will be back with the end result. So I'll see you then, and I'll show the ribs to you. Chipper. All right, I am actually going to call this oven. I'm gonna call these done. Yeah, that's about it for as to how I personally recommend making ribs. Make sure you remove, well, for starters, when you pick out your meat, try and pick, if it has like the date listed for sell by, pick the one with the latest possible sell by date. That way you're more or less guaranteeing yourself a fresher piece of meat. And that, I personally believe, improves the quality of whatever meal you're making. Can I pick this up on the knife? I'm a very skilled individual. Nah, I'm just messing around. Yeah, so make sure you pick out a good quality because meat as you can. That's my recommendation. Sauces, very important. Spices, well, not spices. Your dry rub is extremely important. But for the most part, with cooking, the cooking is really, really simple. It's a couple hours of, just set and forget. Come back, get yourself a, come back and get yourself a few layers of sauce on there. Make sure you get a nice glaze of it going. Here, I'll show you the cut I took. I don't know how well you can see that, but the camera isn't the best. But that's really all there is to it. This way, at least with the way I cook it, meat falls off the bone a lot better, especially when you remove that membrane. Removing the membrane is extremely important for having ribs that aren't quite as tough, because that membrane, when you leave it on, toughens up a fair bit after you cook it, which can really mess up your meal, at least when you're trying to chew through the ribs. But outside of that, there's really not that much more to it. Thanks for watching.